This is the Wing Woman Show. Are you ready? You're listening to the Wing Woman Show, and this is your host, Morgan Bars. Today on the podcast, we are welcoming Mary Pat King, the newest CEO of Girl Scouts of West Central Florida. This is actually her very first podcast episode. She's a first-time CEO. So in this conversation, we talk all about first and ultimately her journey as she achieved her dream position and what is next for her and the organization. So without further ado, let's tune in to today's episode with Mary Pat King. Walk us back to the very beginning of your journey, maybe what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I knew I wanted to be a businesswoman. Like I just knew.
You did?
I did. My mom was a businesswoman. My dad was very much a businessman. He was a banker, and then he became a CEO of a PBS station. And they were very involved in the community. And I loved how they were in Rotary Club, and my mom was in Business and Professional Women, and they just did all of these things in the community, and they really brought us along. So I wanted to be part of that. I felt like it was a really exciting experience. I even have like a third grade picture where I'm wearing a blazer.
Oh, do you know what's so funny about that is when I was younger, I wanted to be a businesswoman too because of the professional dress.
Yeah, I liked
You like
you
the
know,
whole
I,
look of it.
I was always very short. So
Uh-huh.
it could be the little Napoleonian attitude that I have, but I felt good in a blazer.
That's good. Well, that's good. So that was like the very beginning for you.
Yeah, that was the beginning. And then in high school, I think I would say that writing has always been something that I've been, um, excelled at. So I really fell into communications. I did an internship at a newspaper for several years as an intern reporter, and knew I did not want to do that for a living. And then fell into public relations and went to grad school for it. And so communications is really my background. And I started in my career in communications, but I knew I wanted to focus on nonprofits. I did my thesis on nonprofits and how you need to be creative in nonprofits, and so right away, I once I left the PR firm, I went to Safe Kids Worldwide, and that started my career focused on youth and family issues.
So were you heavily involved in volunteering like on the weekends as a child, or what first sparked that passion in nonprofits?
Yes, definitely. So I went to Catholic school
Mm-hmm.
and a parochial school. So a big part of that was always community service. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that was just ingrained in me, that you give back to your community. And my parents were community leaders. They were in United Way. They were in, AUSA. They did,
Mm-hmm.
you name it, they did it. Toys for Tots. Um,
Wow.
so we always saw how important it was to spend your time giving back to the community. And my service for others has
Mm-hmm.
always been a big part of what my family has put ingrained in us.
Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, so right after college, so at first you transitioned into a traditional PR firm, and then you said you got working into nonprofits after
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, after grad school, I had done an internship. For anyone who's younger listening, internships are so important. I did an
Mm-hmm.
internship in Washington, D.C. And when
Wow.
I went home after grad school, I was like, I am moving back to D.C. I love that city. I
Mm-hmm.
need to live there. And I started at a PR firm. But my first boss said to me, you'd be great at a nonprofit because you pour your heart out into the neediest clients when they only have a tiny budget. You need to give your time to, all in. And so pretty much at that point, I started looking at nonprofits and landed at Safe Kids Worldwide, which is known for injury prevention. And I think that really became a journey of
Mm-hmm.
saying yes to opportunities or seeking out opportunities. I've always been someone who's grown within. So at Safe Kids, I had 3 different jobs in the 4 years I was there
Wow.
because new projects came along, and I'd kind of look around and say, Is there an opportunity for
Right.
me? I'd love to be involved in that. And they nurtured that desire. And so I kept saying yes. And then when I moved to the American Diabetes Association, the same thing. I had 3 positions while I was there in 8
Holy
years.
cow.
And it was because there were these opportunities and growth, and I'd get done with finishing a major project or achieving my goal. And someone would say, would you be interested? And yeah, I'll try that. Let's see what I can do.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I knew I wanted to land in a seat like I have today, which is working
Hmm.
for youth and family issues and being a CEO of a nonprofit.
So what advice would you have for someone who maybe in the new year wants to either grow within their current company or make a career shift? What advice would you give to them?
I would say observe people. Start by observing the leaders that you admire around you. If you're in an organization
Hmm.
specifically, who do you admire and who do you think would be fun to learn from? Because the people who mentor you are the ones who often open doors for you. And I really believe in mentorship. And I believe that as especially maybe a younger or rather early career person, to be really listening and observing the way different people lead, but
Hmm.
also to be really self-aware and to be really open to feedback and see yourself as part of this evolution. Um, we're all evolving, we're all changing, we're all growing our perspectives and evolving continuously. And so really looking at every possibility in your organization as an opportunity to learn and evolve. And if
Hmm.
it doesn't happen, say you seek out, this happened to me many times where I'm like, I'd love to work on that. And they're like, yeah, we're really looking for someone else. And you have a moment of ego burn, but
Right.
otherwise it's like, well, that wasn't meant to be. So I'm going to keep moving
Right.
and keep looking for that next opportunity.
That's a great outlook because I think sometimes when people are offering their support and then they get denied on top of that, that it can be taken so personally.
Yeah, it's not personal because as a there's two factors at play. What do you need and what do we need, right? So what
Hmm.
do you need? Someone might see what you need as being a little bit different than what you're seeking.
Hmm.
And a great mentor helps you to understand that. That's happened to me in my career where I have wanted to move really fast to something. Actually, my dad has often said to me, okay, well, first you have to get the right tools for the job, right?
Hmm.
I know where you want to go, but first you have to spend a little time learning and observing. And then you can get there, and you'll get there with more confidence as a result.
Hmm. It sounds like even from an early age, like with your dad, hearing your dad give you that advice, that you've always put an emphasis on being intuitive and understanding, like on the inside, how you feel, where you're at, in order to have the success that you do today.
Yeah, I've studied a lot about emotional intelligence as a
Hmm.
leadership mindset. And I don't think, I think some people are blessed just being truly emotionally intelligent.
Hmm.
I would say it's something that I have to work at because I'm very passionate, right? So sometimes my passion kicks in and I'm just so excited and passionate, and the self-regulation turns off a little bit.
Mm.
So I've had to work very much on self-awareness and self-regulation and making sure that my passion isn't moving me too fast in a direction that isn't necessarily the right direction, or that's sending off a vibe to others that might shut them down. I've learned as a team leader that sometimes the best kind of passion is the passion that you hold within yourself, and you wait for others to shine first, because then they grow their own passion. You can't be
Right.
the cheerleader all the time, right? So, and that's something that I've had to I wouldn't say overcome. It's something that I'm always working on because it's just my
Yeah.
natural enthusiasm and curiosity.
Right.
I have to sometimes self-regulate, especially as a woman. I have
Oh,
to do that.
yeah. That's so interesting because I feel like I almost have a similar situation as you do as well, because because I'm so passionate about things, I'm always the biggest cheerleader for whether it's a project or a specific individual. And so it's very interesting to hear you talk about that.
Recently, I've been taking a lot of, so I went through the John Maxwell leadership training, and
Okay.
I really studied question asking, and sometimes I'll say to myself, ask a question first. Before you jump into brainstorming with someone like, I have so many ideas about this.
Right.
Ask a question first, because they may have ideas that you'll never hear if you don't ask a question first. And I put sticky notes, especially in this virtual environment. It's great to have little sticky note reminders of how you can be a better you, right, all over your computer.
Right.
That's an example of one of those sticky notes that I'm like, ask a question. If I know I'm having a meeting with someone who is more introverted than I am, I make sure that I send them something in advance to respond to. I try to anyways. It's not always, doesn't always happen that way, but I try to. And then I also try to have a couple of questions that I write down.
Okay.
So I don't forget to write questions, because once you ask a few questions, the other questions come naturally. But you kind of have to, I'm an extrovert, extreme extrovert. So I have to prepare myself to make sure that I'm not, hushing someone whose voice and whose mind is brilliant, and I need to hear what they're saying, everything they're saying.
Wow, that is like so incredible. I love learning about those kinds of things, like little small adjustments you can make to make other people feel more comfortable, even if it's just relaying different information to you. So now transitioning into your new role, what kinds of things are you incorporating similar to that in a digital environment to make sure that everyone still feels heard when there's so many different tech barriers?
Yeah. Well, the good news is I've been working remotely up in Florida, but I worked in DC for 6 years. So this is not a new environment to me. This is a very, I'm very comfortable in a digital environment. I've always worked with volunteers all over the country. So I've always had committees that span states and even worldwide. So I feel like when you're working in a digital environment, sometimes you're actually a little bit more polite. I don't know if you noticed this, but in meetings, right? If you're on a conference call and you're in the room, how many times do you see someone press the mute button and then you have your own little dialogue going on while someone is talking?
Right.
How many times do we lean over and have our own little random conversation while someone is talking?
Right.
The chat box allows you to have that, because you can be listening and chatting at the same time. I mean, not everybody can do that, but most of us can. The chat box helps us to do that, but to do it in a more polite way. And I think actually working in a digital environment when I first went remote helped me to come back to the office environment when I would go back to DC once a month to be a better peer and colleague.
Wow, so you were traveling back and forth once a month?
I was, yeah. I worked, so when we moved to Florida for family reasons, my dad got sick, and we, were worried about him. We were worried about my mom caring for him, and we just decided we love Florida, like amazing. And I would tell you that I wasn't handling the work-life parenthood, especially balance, very well. The juggle was so hard when I had an hour plus commute on both ends of my day. I was really, really struggling. And when we put it all together, it was an instantaneous decision that we made on a bridge in Florida, where we were like, why are we living like this? Why don't we live in Florida? This is beautiful. Look, your commute is the bay, and it's, and it's the Gulf. That's amazing. And we decided to move, and we took the risk. We let our bosses know, and they both let us keep our jobs. We were really fortunate about that. And I even had growth within afterwards, because I said yes to a new opportunity and said, yeah, I'd be curious. I'd love to lead that. I'd love to see, build something that didn't exist before. And we moved here. I never, ever regret that risk. It has been the best thing ever, because I have been able to, one, land in this position, working in a community and getting my arms around a community like I've always wanted to do. That's really been my career goal. But two, my family life is so much more balanced now. I feel like the pace is a little bit gentler, and the commute is a bit gentler, and just even going up to DC and spending a month in DC was not bad, because we knew I was going to be there. I was always home for dinner. I was always able to volunteer in my kids' school. Those things that were really important to me, I was still able to do.
That's incredible. And you can be a better you when you're not having to drive so much and you're not feeling pulled in all these directions and feeling bad for not volunteering at your child's school too.
I'm really hoping that this, I am someone who looks at the pandemic and it's super sad. It's so sad.
Right.
First of all, where it starts. And it's super scary. We're all thinking about our mortality all at the same time. It's scary.
Mm-hmm.
But I also see so many positives in corporate environments and organizations. Disruptors can go one of two ways, right?
Right.
There are a lot of possibilities that occur from disruption. And this is the biggest disruption of the century. Let's hope.
100%.
Right? This is it. I hope. This is,
right,
we don't need more. We don't need more. But here we have all of these possibilities, right? The possibility of thinking about the future of work, and how do we make sure that we build an environment, or we build a new employee manual that helps each person to optimize their productivity as well as their happiness at work. I think we have we leapt forward decades in this pandemic in terms of how we think about how people can work together wherever they are.
Right.
And how we utilize people's strengths in more effective ways.
Right. That is such a positive outlook to have too. So now, since stepping into your position, how are you implementing those kinds of things in your culture to make sure that you're keeping everyone connected?
So I'm very fortunate. I'm a first-time CEO. And I started in March. I got the job in March, and my first conversation with our team was, this is a great organization. I know, because I'm a Girl Scout mom and volunteer. I'm so excited to take us to the next level. And then a month later, I started my job, and I was like, okay, it's a pandemic. We're going to get through this. So basically, there is the organization I inherited. I really rest on the shoulders of great leaders. Jessica Miroff before me, Kim Joels before her. We have a legacy of excellence in terms of leadership for Girl Scouts of West Central Florida. I'm so fortunate. And we have an amazing executive team and senior leadership team who they care about their people, and that's where it all begins. They know what the girls need. They are deeply, deeply, deeply committed to our organization. Radiate passion is one of our guiding principles, and they do in everything they do. And so to walk into this team that already had such a strong culture, what I said to myself is, I don't want to mess this up. This is really good. What I want to do is reinforce the guiding principles that already exist, building trusting relationships, impress our customers, radiate passion, create energy. These are the things that our Girl Scout leaders, our Girl Scout staff already do. And that extends to our Girl Scout volunteers who, from our board to our troop leaders and our parent volunteers and our service unit managers, there's so much that is all about the girl. Like, they're focused. I think when you have an organizational culture that already exists like that, then your role as the leader is purely focused on integrity. And how do you transparently lead, and how do you build trust so that ultimately that culture stays as strong as it is, so that when the pandemic's over, we just pick up and know our measures will not be the same as they were before the pandemic, but our rebound will be much smoother, and we'll be able to move at the speed of the girl that much quicker.
Right. So this is more of a personal question. But what is it like to step into an established organization as the CEO on your first day? Like, what is that experience like, especially since you're a first-time CEO? So for me, I'm a huge visualizer and vision boarder. So I feel like this would be a kind of position that would be on your vision board for years. So what is that like to be on your first day, like stepping into that role?
I mean, I have goosebumps because I have goosebumps.
You do?
I have, I'll tell you, I have to pinch myself sometimes that
You
this is
do?
real. And sadly, my dad is not with us anymore, but I
Mhm.
feel him inside me and what all the
Oh.
wisdom he's given me. And I think about him
Oh.
on my way to work. I pass Hanley Road and my maiden name was Hanley. And it's like my little high five to my
Oh
dad
my
every day, every time that I
gosh.
drive into work. Right. Cause it's just, this is what I've always dreamed of. And, this is a personal story, but I share it often
Mhm.
because it's part of my leadership journey. When when we moved to Florida, my career, like I pretty much stayed still except for that one growth opportunity. And I knew
Mhm.
I was coming up and I needed next, right?
Mhm.
But I didn't know when that would be, and I didn't know when it was going to be. Am I going to start my own business? Am I going to pursue a
Right.
CEO role or COO role? What am I going to do? I don't know. I don't know yet. So, and I didn't want to make a change while my dad was sick because my prior organization was incredibly gracious around
Mhm.
knowing when I needed to care for my family.
Mhm.
So throughout his illness, they just were amazing, and that's so important. Family always first.
Mhm.
So when we were writing his eulogy, my sisters and I were sitting in my sister's family room, and we were talking about the advice Dad always gave. You got to be tough. You have to have the right tools for the job. I already said it. One of them. And then they said, reach for your next level of incompetence. And I was like, what's that? He's never said that. I never heard that. And my mother started laughing. She's like, Mary Pat, you never needed to hear that. And I was like, why? She's like, you were always reaching. We had to slow you down, if anything. And I was like, oh, okay. But then I kind of went inside myself and had this little conversation with my dad in my heart, right?
Mhm.
That's where you have your conversations with your parents. It's really with yourself and all that they teach you. And I just thought about him and I was like, Dad, are you telling me something? Do I need to reach? Is it my time to reach?
Mhm.
So I got home, and on the way home from I lived in northern New York, so on the way home
Mhm.
back to Florida, where it was much warmer, I thought a lot about that, and it was 2019, right at New Year's Day,
Mm.
2019, and I was thinking about my resolution, and I said I'm going to reach for my next level of incompetence. So I signed up for 2 certification programs, the John Maxwell program and my association executive certification, which is like a nonprofit CEO program. Did 130 hours of classes, studied, took the test in December around the same time I got the Girl Scout call. And I
Mm.
was like, I would not have been ready. The tools would not have been in the box
Right.
if I didn't start reaching for my next level of competence with those certifications. I wouldn't have been ready to confidently say
Right.
yes and to have the courage and the confidence to be ready for this role. And I said, okay, but you don't really want, like I was
Yeah.
thinking, yeah, it's a long shot, whatever. And then every time I got a call back, I was like, this is such a long shot, but okay, well, yeah, sure. I'll happy to do it. Happy, so excited. And then when I got the call, I was like, I got off the phone and I went into I was like, that was for real. I just got offered the job. And all my friends, meanwhile, were like, you're such a Girl Scout. It's perfect for you. This is totally going to happen. I'm like, no, 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 because it's too close to my dream. And, you don't want your dreams
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
crushed. So I was like, no. So now my dream, I had to create a new dream, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
living this dream. So my next dream is to just be known for making this organization, like to be the Girl Scout lady around town, to be the
Right.
one that people are like, Mary, let's call Mary Pat and get the Girl Scouts involved. Like
Right.
the Girl Scouts need to be there and do what my dad did for PBS in my hometown.
Wow. So, yeah, let's talk about your dad a little more too, because it sounds like he had a huge impact on you, like growing up and even today. I mean, I get goosebumps just hearing how everything lined up so well for you to be even just like right here today.
Yeah.
which is incredible. So was your dad like a big community leader with PBS?
He was so he was a banker for 20 some years, and then, and always volunteered, as I said. And when he was a volunteer on the board for PBS, and when the general manager was looking to retire, he recruited my dad right underneath him to take over the role. And so I want to say I was in college when that happened. And then from that point on, my dad was the PBS guy until his retirement. And so it was probably another 15 or so years. And he unfortunately had to retire early because of his illness. It was a frontotemporal degeneration, which is a early onset dementia type of disease, which it strikes brilliant minds. Like, so I'm not surprised, but he, and my mother, cause she, my mother did a lot of the talking, but my dad did a lot of the modeling. And so she would talk to us about what he was doing in his career, and he would just show us and bring us along. And so I regularly saw my dad in leadership roles. And I remember vividly going to his Rotary meeting when he was the president of Rotary Club. And he said, "This is an awesome opportunity." And it was like 1983. And I'm like, my dad just said awesome. What? Because that was definitely, a term that we thought was just for the kids at that point. So yeah. And so he always had a very rational view of things. And so when I listen to my rational, I have my enthusiastic side and I have my rational side. When I listen to my rational side, it's often thinking about my dad and how he would approach things. He was a finance person, so he approached things from a very objective perspective. I'm a writer. I'm an English major, so I'm a different leader than he is.
Right.
And that was something I learned in the John Maxwell leadership process. In the self-discovery process of going through that certification, I learned as a leader, I'm not my dad. I can't even compare myself to my dad, because he was different. He was more bottom line. He was very more, and I'm more, as you said, intuitive, and sometimes I go with my gut more.
Right. Have you taken the Enneagram personality test?
I did a long time ago, and I'm trying to remember what I was. But I've done, like, I'm an ENTJ for Myers-Briggs, that kind of, trying to think, for DISC. For DISC, it's interesting. I'm a very high D, a very high I, and a very high C.
Oh.
And just all the same, and a very, very low S. So I'm not very sensitive, apparently.
Yeah, apparently not. Apparently not.
So I apologize in advance for that.
So what would you say has been your highest career point and then your lowest career point?
I think that getting this position has definitely been the highest career point, but I'll share a different. I think another highest career point would probably be anytime I launched a new program. So for National PTA, when I arrived, we only had the Reflections program, which is an arts program across the country. It's fantastic. So I was charged with designing a whole bunch of new programs. And so one of them was our STEM plus Families program. Another one was our School of Excellence program. The first time I drove by, there's hundreds and hundreds of schools of excellence now. The first time I drove by a School of Excellence banner, I nearly cried. I did cry. I'm pretty sure I did. It was Curlew Creek Elementary. And I was like, oh, my baby. Like, in the design process, I dreamed of driving by a banner and making it so that it was something that all schools knew about. And it was an opportunity for them to show why family engagement matters. And it was a process that impacted the school culture and the school environment. And that was probably one of the greatest moments.
So are you a big visualizer? Because you talked about like how throughout the process you saw that banner. So do you spend time like visualizing or vision boarding?
Yeah. I'm not so much a vision board. I'm a terrible sketch artist. So I will, with triangles and circles, I'll be like, I know where we need to go with this. and I'll sketch it out. School of Excellence was one of them. I have my original School of Excellence sketch, and I'll show it to everyone. They're like, can't read it. No idea what you're thinking. And I'm way over here, and they're like, can't really see it until I put it in PowerPoint, or I put it on paper, because the way I'm thinking, my brain goes so fast, and I'm like, I know exactly where we need to go. But until I put it in on paper or on screen, it doesn't make sense to others. I learned very early in my career that during a brainstorm, my comfort with the spaghetti falling off the wall is other people's pain. Like, they're like, okay, that's a really bad idea.
Right.
I'm like, just tell me it's a bad idea and we'll keep moving. That's my low S. I'm like, that's fine. Let's just keep moving. But when I put things on paper, I'm very methodical and process driven in that way, and very operational. So I kind of work in both angles, but the operational side is my designer, and I love design thinking. I think that's the best way to design really any strategy is
that's
to ask your audience. Yeah. Ask your audience, what do they need? What do they care about? Let's start there. I went through a Lean Six Sigma process when I was with the American Diabetes Association. And really that's like design thinking times 2000. But it was an amazing experience, because every little thing you have to ask, what does the audience care about? What does the audience think? What behavior will this change? And a lot of times your ideas don't achieve that when you research it. So that was good for me.
Wow. Okay. So then what was your lowest career point?
I would say my lowest career point was probably, I think I had risen at American Diabetes Association to the last position I was at. I don't think I was ready for it. And I think I kind of always knew it. Like it was something I went for. It was something I applied for. But it was to oversee all programs for the whole country. I was very much a youth and families person. And so all programs across the country, I had only maybe 5 years of true management experience, people management, not project management. I had like 10 years of project management. I was approaching it like a project instead of people leadership. And my CEO at the time, who was someone, he's given me so many nuggets for my future, and he really invested a lot of energy in me. And this is a large organization, so for him to invest energy in me, it was really amazing. He said to me, Mary Pat, there's a big difference between project management and people management. You are a great project manager. That's why you keep rising. But now you're at the level that doesn't matter. You have to be a great people manager. And so I was like, wow, that's very different. So I started studying, because I'm a nerd, and I was like, well, I better study all about people management. And that's really how I started studying a lot about leadership development. And at PTA in this past year, when I was doing my my reach for my next level of competence, I understood people leadership. The next step for me was organizational leadership, which is learning about the things I've avoided for the past 22 years. Finance, HR, all of the things that I was like, I don't know if governance, like all of those things I needed to go really deep into to understand, so that I could do an organizational leadership job.
Wow. Okay. So last question, what is your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Oh, well, of course it's Thin Mint. Of course.
Thin Mint.
That's why there's no Thin Mint box right here. Here it is. There's no Thin Mint box because they're gone.
They're already gone.
They're gone. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited for everyone to listen to this episode. Is there a specific website or program that you want to drive our listeners to?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. It's so fun to be here, my first podcast. Second, I would suggest that you buy some cookies starting January 2nd.
Yes.
And if you know a girl who has this spark that she could make a huge difference in the world, get her in Girl Scouts. And you can go to GSWCFL WCFL.org. We build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place, like you. So we need more girls, and girls need us right now.